we're here at the Sustainable Food Summit in San Francisco, and I'm very excited to be talking to Tobias Bandel, who is the managing partner at Soil and More. Tobias, you're working with farmers on soil health and also reducing carbon emissions through that work. How is it connected? How you use soil to sequester carbon and improve water retention?
Well, soil basically is one of the biggest carbon pools on the planet. If you look to the IPCC numbers and FAO reports, it carries a few gigatons, contributing a tremendous amount of the carbon potential. And by doing, let's say, non-sustainable agriculture, we are releasing a lot of this through deep tillage, through applying chemical fertilizers, etc. So the potential of maintaining but also bringing back carbon to the soil is a big potential to mitigate climate change. But, and this is maybe the most important part of it, it's not only about mitigation of climate change, but by bringing back carbon to the soil, it improves the structure of the soil, brings back the sponginess of the soil, which is directly related to the water holding capacity. Mm-hmm. And we see this really also with our partners in, for instance, Kenya coffee growers. They just came back to me in September when I went there the fourth time in 2011 and said now they understood why composting is so important, because they grabbed a handful of soil from their monoculture tea farms and poured half a liter of water through it, and all the water went right through because there was zero structure. And then we went together to the plot where we did the trials with compost, mm-hmm. where additional carbon is in the soil, and we did the same exercise and only a few drops came out. So this is the link between adding carbon to the soil through composting, which improves productivity but also increases the soil structure, which reduces the amount of water you need.
Oh, so you get a double bonus of retaining carbon, removing it from the air, and improving the soil productivity. Yeah. Can you give an example of a project you've worked on and how much improvement in productivity you've seen in the land?
Let's stick to Kenya and then move on to India. Tea is a very important crop there. Yeah. And they had over the last around about 10 years about 30 to 40% yield drop, because they were continuously actually mining soils rather developing soils. So the soil structure was gone and the rainy season came late or early, or soil erosion took place, so the yields went down. And when they started the application of compost, yields went up immediately in the first season already by 25% again. Wow. And the same happened in India, where over time now the monsoon season is coming just very unpredicted. Yeah. And mainly it comes late, so the soils dry out and the fruit setting doesn't take place in the tea. So through the application of compost also there they saw yield increases of 20-25% already in the first 2 years.
Mm-hmm. So if you look at globally the soil health of the planet, what percentage is managed properly and is doing the right thing that the soil should be doing in terms of retention of water? And what percentage do you need to get in there and help improve?
Well, it's a very complex question, but yeah. First of all, we need to realize that about 70% of the food produced worldwide is coming from small-scale farms, which means also in agriculture, so we can say 70% of agriculture systems are based on small-scale farming systems. Mm-hmm. And these guys are normally farming in a traditional way, low input, which normally is already pretty close to sustainable farming. Mm-hmm. It might not be high tech or as best as possible, as good as possible, mm-hmm. but they're using very few inputs. They're using as much as possible from local resources, so that's already pretty close. Still, as they are facing more and more pressure from the industry, even locally, because if you look at China or India also, the markets are growing tremendously and there's a lot of pressure put on those little farmers in terms of increase productivity. They start also to apply more chemicals. They start to mine their soils. So let's say if we take a snapshot of the planet, right. We're losing about 12 million hectares of fertile soil every year, but that mainly happens on large-scale farms. But there is a huge risk that the small-scale farms also adopt this non-sustainable practices due to the pressure from the markets, and that's why we are focusing on training them and raising their awareness that they can maybe boost the productivity for 3 to 5 years by using a chemical fertilizer, but on the long run, which is still within their own life, but definitely within the lifetime of their children,
Right.
they do a much better job and do a much better investment if they use more resources from the farm, which is biomass for composting.
Right. We talk a lot about labeling here. Organic is one of the prime labeling, and soil really is the core of it. Like, organic is kind of the surface of what you produce, but if you can measure soil health of a farm, then you truly know that it's a sustainable farm. So do you use measures with your farms? How do you determine whether a farm is reaching its potential in terms of soil health?
That's correct what you said. It all starts with soils. I mean, soil is not the solution to everything. I mean, it's always a whole set of indicators, but it's one of the basic indicators which one should look at, together with water, with seeds, etc., biodiversity. But yes, I mean, if you look to the development of the organic movement, in the UK, the biggest organic certifier is called Soil Association, so it plays a central role there. What we currently do is to develop with the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements, IFORM, which is the international accreditation body for all the national certification organizations, to develop with them a soil monitoring scheme where information is collected, but information which is already there, meaning pH, soil organic matter levels, electrical conductivity, soil texture, whether it's a clay soil or silty soil or sandy soil. These things, as an individual piece of information, doesn't make a lot of sense, but we put them into a model, so we see if the applied soil management is putting that farm on the right track towards more sustainable practices. We do work also with larger farms, but also with, let's say, brands who or import companies or manufacturers who source their raw materials from a lot of farms, from big farms, but also from a lot of smaller farms, because they realized that the other high input farming is just already midterm. People like Walmart or Dole or others, they give that number already a name, and they say between 5 to 10 years they expect that those conventional farms are not as productive anymore, and by then actually sustainable products will become cheaper than conventional, because they just make better use, more efficient use of the resources.
When is that switch going to happen? That's a huge boost for the sustainable food economy.
People say it's between the next 5 or 10 years that this is going to happen. We did a study in Egypt where we assessed the economics of 7 commodities, which was potatoes and sugar beet, sugar cane, and wheat and rice and maize and cotton, and we just compared the cost structure of a business as usual conventional farming system with the one of a more sustainable system, and took into consideration external costs such as chemical fertilizer price increase, rising oil prices, leakage factor in the soil, etc., water tax, carbon tax, and we ran this model for all these crops, and all of them, latest by 2016, were more costly in the conventional way and were more cost effective and cheaper in the organic and sustainable way, and some crops already are today, if you take those costs into consideration.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your work. To find out more about some of the work you've done and the reports you've mentioned, viewers can go to
www.soilandmore.com.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for giving me a chance. Thanks.